Welcome to the Melinda Show. I'm Melinda. Today we are so fortunate to have with us business coach with ActionCoach, Sean Schoenmakers, and he's my business coach. Welcome, Sean.
Nice. How you doing?
We're so glad to have you here.
Yes, glad to be here.
So people always ask me when I say, Lisa and I, my partner Lisa Duffy and I, we're working with our business coach. They always say, what is that?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. Are you asking me what it is?
Yes, what is it?
I'm not even sure most business coaches know, honestly. But I would say the coaching industry all over, all types of coaching has increased, of course, like a lot of the industries. But business coaching for sure is also improving or increasing, I'd say, in awareness as well. More so in the United States, I'd say, than, like, for example, we have coaches, ActionCoach, around the world. There's actually 84 countries that we have coaches in.
Wow.
And so the UK, I'm familiar with a lot of different countries. The UK is like huge on coaching, business coaching, right? So they're very familiar. But again, here in the US, it's like, what is that? So, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, coaching in general is about giving somebody a mirror, helping them see things they're probably not going to see. I think it's Eric Schmidt, or whoever the previous CEO of Google was at some point. He talks about how, at first one of his, the board member was like, hey, you should have a coach. And he's like, coach, like, why would I have a coach? I'm really successful. Like, why would I don't need a coach, right?
Right.
Almost kind of like it's a negative thing, but what he goes on to explain is how almost nobody, humans in general, are not good at like sort of just seeing themselves in the normal light. Of course, you might look at yourself with a bias or different things like that. But so anyway, a coach at the end of the day is more about a lot of different facets, but ultimately giving somebody the ability to look at themselves or look at their business or look at any really situation where they're not emotionally tied. They're able to look at it more objectively than you are, give you that feedback and information so that you can make better decisions. Of course, once you do that a lot, like you're a business coach for a long time or any other type of coach for a long time, you start to add a lot of expertise in terms of course, business, or it might be if you're a food coach or nutrition coach, right? You start to increase a lot of competency. So again, if you're a business person who, number one, wants to get that mirror to look at to make good decisions, but also add expertise or try to improve other areas of your business, then great. Those are some things you can do with a business coach. And like you said, even to this day, people are like, so sorry, run that by me again. Yeah. So
we're lawyers,
yeah.
But you don't just coach lawyers, right?
No, we don't. Yep.
So what all types of industries do you coach?
We coach, so I would say, ActionCoach, right, as a corporation. So I have a franchise, it's the ActionCoach franchise. But ActionCoach as a corporation all around the world coaches all businesses, all industries, right?
Okay.
So we here in Dallas we do all different businesses as well. The ones we focus on and tended to get more referrals to over the last several years is professional services, which include people like attorneys, but also we do a lot of like contractors and or people around real estate, right? A lot of real estate in DFW. And so whether it's interior designers, commercial insurance, real estate agents, general contractors, commercial, residential, right? There's all different types of businesses that go around real estate. We tend to work with a lot of those kinds of businesses. So
when we go to law school, when professionals get their degrees, it did not include anything about running a business, and not all lawyers ever will, right? Some will work for someone else their whole career. They don't need to know how to run a business, but we just learned how to practice law, if we even learned that. We learned how to think analytically and identify issues so we could be good lawyers. And as you know, Lisa and I are still busily practicing law. So that's the majority of my time. I'm actually running a case.
Right.
But I'm also trying to run my firm.
Yeah.
So it has been great help to us, not only to have the mirror effect, which I completely agree with, but to have some of your experience and knowledge of, hey, industry standard is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Because we don't have any way to know that.
Right.
We just know what we've had our firm 25 years. We just know what we've done.
Yeah.
Unless we ask around, which we do from time to time. Hey, what are y'all doing over there?
Right.
It's helpful to have somebody who says, hey, have you ever thought about doing X?
Right.
We're like, oh, no, we haven't thought about that. And just setting aside the time to focus on the business together. Lisa and I own the company together and we get coached by you together. That's been helpful to us.
Yeah. There's a lot of, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, there's a lot of reasons or benefits that someone might gain from having a business coach or a coach of other sorts. One of which, like I said, expertise. The other piece you mentioned is when you have someone that works with a lot of other businesses, well, they get insight into 25, 30, 40 different businesses. So you who are going to be very familiar with your business are not going to be nearly as familiar or familiar at all with other businesses. And so, you can get into groups, for example, and we have some group activities that we have with our clients where we'll do, for example, 90-day planning sessions. And in our 90-day planning sessions, we would specifically have an activity called the hot seat. And so we'll break people into smaller groups. They can chat with other business owners. Sometimes it's similar industry, sometimes it's completely different industry, but ultimately they can start to get some insights. And so when you have a coach, cool, you can do some of those group activities if they have those in their sort of repertoire or part of their products and services. But even if they don't have them in their products and services, you still get that insight from the coach because they clearly work with those other 25, 30 people. I do find that it's always interesting. You never know when someone's going to really take in the information that is put in front of them, but they'll chat with a client of mine at our 90-day planning session, and that client will recommend probably the exact same thing I already recommended to them, but when they hear it differently and it syncs or it hits a certain key or whatever it is, and so they're like, oh man, great idea, and I don't really care when that they take it in, and whether it's from me or the other client, I'm just glad that they get. So the point is I almost try to put them into these different scenarios so that, in fact, we have conferences too. We have one nationwide conference every year. This coming year, it's actually going to be in Houston, so more local. Last year it was in Las Vegas. But sometimes, again, at the conferences, of course I learn from the speakers, but other times the speakers will say similar or same things that I might say. But when someone listens to a speaker on the stage, it's got 20, thoughts of years experience, whatever, they'll listen, right? Or they take it in at that particular time. So anyways, putting people in these different scenarios where they'll hopefully at some point get whatever information they need, then that could be sort of the breakthrough. But yeah, a lot of different things or benefits that you might get from having like a business coach, for example. So
some of it, let's give some examples of things people might be working with with a coach.
Yeah.
So it could be
I could rattle
hiring, firing, right?
For sure.
Making hiring,
Team
firing
stuff.
decisions.
We always say the most common sort of three buckets is time, team, and money, right? Of course, there's a lot that goes into all that, and they all play together, right? So, if your time management isn't very good, for example, then, you may not be able to produce enough. And if you can't produce enough, you may not be able to afford to hire a team member. Or if you start hiring team members and then you have to figure out how to manage folks, again, depending on if your time management isn't very good, you may not manage the people very well, so they may not be a profit center for your business. So anyway, there's that kind of time and team tied together, and then the money in terms of increasing profits in the business. There's a lot of things you can do to increase profits. So, but more specifically, there's kind of, we have what we call 6 different steps that we use to build kind of with a recipe, so to speak, build a business. And within each of those steps, there's different categories and topics that we focus on. So, for example, in our lowest level kind of mastery step, we look at financial mastery for a business, and that could be profit and loss statements. It could be cash flow forecasts. It could be what products or services are more profitable than others, looking at gross profits versus net profits. We also look at delivery mastery, so how that product or service is delivered. That's going to make a big difference as to whether you either retain customers or have to continue to get new customers. We look at time mastery, which I mentioned time being a category earlier. That's super important with a lot of professional services we work with. As you know, you are more or less billing time, right? You're kind of selling time, which isn't really the ultimate goal, but ends up being a factor for professional services, is that time that you have to bill and produce. Then we also look at destination, like where are we going? You could work on a lot of stuff, but if you work on it in the wrong direction, it may not be that helpful for you. So a lot of factors in that. We also have a ton of marketing and sales strategies where we're focused purely on increasing revenues and or profits. So some of our clients are really more focused on that if they're in kind of growth mode. We'll look at systems and processes. There's a lot of different components. We call it leverage, basically getting more output with less input. And, processes and systems are different ways to look at how we can increase leverage. Of course, adding people is another way to add leverage to the business. For the business owner, they can get more output with less of their time. Some people are focused on the team. That might be hiring folks. So we have like a hiring process or a hiring system. We find most small business owners don't have too much structure related to how they hire folks. And if they do, fantastic. There's usually some tweaking or some things we can do to make it a little bit better. I always try to tell clients that, like, when you're hiring folks, basically one of the goals is to take in enough information or data, get enough data points to make good decisions, right?
You really helped us with that.
Yeah.
We, we're not doing enough steps in a hire. We would meet with them, and if we liked them, we'd be like, oh, great.
Yeah. A lot of people do that. And so it's funny, I'm reading rereading a book called, Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if you ever read it.
No,
Yeah.
but I am familiar with the author.
Yeah, he's written multiple books, and this is one of them. But I'm rereading it, and you get different takeaways every time you read these books. But he just, part of what he talks about in different ways in that book is how bad we are at talking to strangers, right? Like, because we have our own beliefs and values, and so we by to some degree assume maybe that person has similar beliefs or values, and then like how we read people, they go to point out how like most people are horrible. So apparently humans have like a truth bias, so we default to truth. So we assume when someone's chatting with, like, telling us something, that we assume it's true, and that's good for most of the time. But of course, if someone's like purposely trying to deceive you,
Yes.
you're gonna default to thinking that they're telling the truth because you're human. And so if you think about like interviews, right? I mean, like, I'm not saying people are trying to deceive you, but they're obviously doing their best to put their best foot forward. And so there are things you might hear or listen to in an interview that you're going to maybe disregard. But if you get enough data points, right, throughout that process, then you can look at the data points and say, hey, that all fits together. And that's why, like, we recommend assessments and things like that in addition to.
We had people taking a little test, and
Yeah.
then you would help us interpret the test, and we made a very good hire, but we had multiple interview phases, interviewed with different people, got the little test, then followed up after that, and just making ourselves do those steps was worth it.
Yeah, it can feel like it's overkill, I'm sure, especially when you're busy, which you are, and most of us are that are, successful professionals. But it's kind of the same old story, right? If you kind of skip, you what do you call it? Not skip corners, but try to
Jump
skip
through
steps,
the
or you try to
process,
go through it quickly, then you end up with a bad hire, and then you just
Oh,
waste
that's a much
Yeah,
bigger waste
you
of
wasted-
time,
yeah.
money, effort, yes.
Yeah. So
One experience that I would say I've had in working with you as a coach, and this is probably true working with any coach, it's kind of like therapy, where sometimes I find myself resisting. Like, you'll say something and I'll think, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to focus on that. And then I have to stop and think, why am I resistant to that? And maybe because it's a hassle, I don't know how to do it.
Yep.
But that's the whole point, is if we can let down that resistance and embrace it, then that's when the positive change comes. And that's true when people, are doing hard therapeutic work. It can be so hard.
Yep.
But it can really bring you the result. So what makes a good coaching candidate? Like, probably not everybody is open to it.
Well, first off, I'll just touch on this kind of similarity because we actually work with a therapy firm, for example, as one of my clients. But I've got this graphic that shows pretty nicely, because again, most probably business coaches don't know some of these differences, and so surely a lot of people don't know the differences that are not in the industry. But like, there's counselors, there's coaches, and there's therapists, right? And like, they all kind of do slightly different stuff. There is overlap, and so many times. So, for example, one of the differences between coaching and therapy is really focused on the past, right? Because if you can understand the past, then great, you can potentially give yourself a better future. Coaching is mostly focused on the future, right? So we're really looking ahead. Now, when we see that there's resistance or something that might be holding us back, we might need to take a little dip into the history or the past just to kind of figure out what's going on there. That's not our expertise. We do have knowledge in that space. We've actually had like we have these global conferences we do every year. We've had therapists that come and they'll do presentations. They'll do the activities with us so we can kind of get a flavor for what it feels like and what it's like. But never do I pretend to be the expert in that space. I'm like, hey, look, it looks like there's some things here. Would you agree? In fact, I had a conversation like this just the other day with a client. And the awareness, my goal with them is to increase the awareness, right? If the awareness increases, generally that thing is going to improve. But if they want to actually like work on that thing, like in addition to the awareness, then I always say, hey, look, chat with this therapist or someone who really does that, right? Because that's not what we do on a day-to-day basis. And so your question was, who's a good candidate? Really, at the end of the day, it's people that are, we say coachable, but again, no one probably knows what that means. I'd say open-minded, right? Basically, if someone is open to change, which, you mentioned, hey, there's some things that you might suggest that I can already notice I'm kind of closed off to, and I don't really know why. Mm-hmm. Well, some people are more closed off on a lot of stuff, right? So, generally speaking, if someone's open, and when would someone be open? They're usually more open if they're having challenges, they've hit a plateau, things usually aren't going swimmingly, right? So if they're not going swimmingly, then hey, you're probably saying, what am I not doing, or what's a new solution? I may not. I've tried a lot of things, but I guess I'm just not figuring it out. Like I have to open myself up to other options or other ideas. So that generally, and I'm not saying the business is like failing, but again, plateauing. You might be making good money in the business, for example, but you've been there for a while and you're starting to get dissatisfied, right? Mm-hmm. So when you get a little bit more dissatisfied, you typically might be a little more open-minded. Or the folks that are doing really well, but they have a big vision. I'm doing well, but man, my buddy over there, he's doing 3 times better or 2 times better, or he's got his personal life figured out. Looks like it doesn't even work a day in his life and he's doing so well, whatever. So if you kind of know or see that that's something that you still can progress to or you want to attain, then again, you will likely be more open to these different solutions. So people that are open-minded and kind of have some things they want to accomplish, those are good candidates.
I like it because it feels like I view myself as a lifetime learner. Mm-hmm. I like learning. I like learning in my case law. In my work, every case is different, and we learn something in every case, and the law is ever changing. Mm-hmm. And this is another way to learn and become better at running the business. So I view it in that way, that it's exciting. It can keep your business more exciting to you, your interest level higher.
Well, that's the other thing we find is, so generally we're working with businesses that are pretty well established. They're not usually startups. So that does happen here and there, but it's not the common scenario. And when people are more established, they've probably done their craft for a bit of time. Mm-hmm. And so you're probably still doing your craft because you probably still like it and you love it or whatever those things are, but you're probably also interested in doing some different stuff, having variety. So we find too, usually when they're more established, working on the business is usually a little bit more interesting because it's newer, it's fresher, mm-hmm. it's different, mm-hmm. it's another place to exercise your brain and, mm-hmm. and utilize your intelligence to try to figure out new problems or new solutions or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so usually when they're more established, that's kind of it's fun to like work on the business. Yeah.
And I think in life to have the next project or mm-hmm. the next exciting change, I think it keeps you interested and purpose-driven. So that's one reason for me that it has been beneficial is it's exciting.
Well, what we do is in the personal development space, right? And we have a little time target graphic that we teach to people and help them understand that where we want to spend, like when you're working with a coach, where you should be spending most of your time doing stuff is in this zone that describes tasks that are not urgent, but they're important, which basically means they're going to help you reach your goals, but they don't have to be done like today or tomorrow. And that's a personal development zone because do you ever have to read a book to improve yourself? No, there's no urgency to do that. But if you do, you're going to gain skills, you're going to gain knowledge. So when you work with a coach, that's the main zone, or that's the main types of activities that we're working with people on, which takes them out of the firefighting urgency. Hey, I'm solving things because they're flying at me. And we put more time into the, hey, let's look forward and plan and figure stuff out for the future so that when we get to the future, it's easier, it's better, it's get better results, all that stuff. So yeah, personal development is what we are. And so the people that like to develop themselves personally, they usually are also fans of something like coaching. So
how much time, if somebody said, oh, I like the sound of this, but I don't have any time, how much of a time commitment would it be for somebody to get started?
So one of the first things I would suggest to anyone that's even just debating, hey, how could I even improve my business? Or, hey, I want to improve my life. And so, hey, well, own a business. So a business might be a big vehicle into me improving my life. We do 2-hour strategy sessions for free, right? They're complimentary. So it's one of the ways that we have a conversation with business owners, look at a lot of the details. I mean, people are like, hey, can you help me? I'm like, I don't know, right? Let's look at some details and some information. And so, but that 2-hour strategy session by itself, typically what we hear coming out of that session from the people we meet with is like, oh, my eyes are open, right? Hey, I didn't see that, or I wasn't seeing that, or I didn't realize, or hey, I thought that might be the scenario, but now I know for sure. And so as soon as you have that clarity, what can you do? You can charge forward. So even just a couple hours, again, that's not a recurring scenario, but that would be useful and helpful for anyone just thinking about, hey, how can I improve or get better? And then, of course, if you end up deciding to do a program or you want to continually improve or continually look at these different ways to get better in the business, then what we tell folks is the recommendation is to basically work 4 to 5 hours a week on the business or improving stuff, working on our goals, stuff like that. Now, if you have a couple partners or honestly, even if you have any team, then great. You don't have to be the only person that's working on the business, right? In fact, if you have a team, I suggest you get the team working on the business. And that might be an hour a week. But if you have 4 team members and they each spending 1 hour a week, that's 4 hours a week going towards improving the business, which isn't your time, right? And so, how much benefit could that gain you in your business or your life if you have at least 4 to 5 hours a week going on improving stuff? I mean, what if you just read a book 4 hours a week? I'm betting you'd start doing things better, right? But if you're actually, you have specific goals and strategies and things you're specifically working on, it's going to be that much more powerful. So, yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. All kinds of opportunities. Yeah.
So what area do you work in? Just Dallas or the whole Metroplex?
So we have clients all over. Most of our coaching is done virtually. So I'm on Zoom a lot. And honestly, we've been that way since I started 9 years ago. There were, Zoom wasn't as popular then, and people were,
before
internet.
COVID.
Yeah, internet was, good enough, but still a little kind of maybe questionable. But we've been doing Zoom coaching sessions since for a while. And it used to be. People used to do phone calls for coaching way back in the day. So anyways, virtual is common.
Convenient.
Yeah, and there are people that maybe prefer in person, but I think once they try the virtual, it's pretty good, right? I mean, you get most of the communication. Obviously, you're not physically maybe sensing their vibes, but you've got the video and everything. So because we're mostly on Zoom, we do have most of our clients are here in DFW, but we've gotten referred out. So I've even had a client in Australia, right? So
wow.
Yeah, so around the world, and it was like I don't even know what time we ended up figuring out, but we figured out a time that was obviously I think it was early
when you
morning.
were both awake.
Yeah, it was like 5 a.m. her time or 6 a.m. She was an early riser, and it was a time that worked for me too. So, but anyway, so yeah, we've got clients in and around different states, and then sometimes other countries. So, and even those 2-hour strategy sessions, I've done many, especially during COVID, where hey, we can't get together, but we can still chat about your business, and so we can do that over Zoom.
Is it really expensive?
Coaching?
Yeah.
Melinda, what do you think? No. So it's funny. First off, we have a 17-week guarantee. So what we tell folks before we even do those complimentary 2-hour strategy sessions is, hey, FYI, we have a 17-week guarantee. So, hey, we're going to look at some things. You're going to get some ideas you can use with or without us. If we decide to do a program, which we'll find that out when we go through the session, then FYI, we have this 17-week guarantee. So if we decide to do a program, it's got to be a program that's going to get you a return on investment within 17 weeks, which is about 4 months, because it takes some time to implement anything. So in any case, with that guarantee, basically what we're saying is coaching isn't going to cost you any money. Within 17 weeks, we will have implemented something to get you a return on investment, which means you're now making more money than our coaching.
Yeah, we're paying for it.
Exactly. We're paying for ourselves within 17 weeks. And of course, that's not the goal. The goal is to get you 3x, 10x the ROI on coaching. But that's how we make sure we're not a cost, for example. We're only a benefit.
It has been I can vouch personally. Yeah. It has been a great investment for us. And we probably underutilize your services because of our schedules.
Yeah.
But it's still, even that, it has been a huge benefit for us, and not just financially. Of course, it's always good to make more money, but all the other things we talked about, like peace of mind and improved situations personally and in the business. You cannot even put a dollar figure on that. Yeah,
I mean, I talk about money a lot because if you're a business owner and you're for-profit, which most of the businesses are, then money is a factor. It should be something you're looking at. So I always talk about it because it's usually one of the common ground things that most people would like to make more of or do better on. But what does money do? Again, it's a tool. So if you can hire better people or more people, or if you can take more time off, have more vacations, all those are the real reasons you typically want to make more money, which are not, it's not for money's sake. It's to have those other emotional benefits or those other, benefits that you have in your life. So lots of good things that can come of it. I will say, you were saying you guys have benefited a lot. That's one of the reasons we do those 2-hour strategy sessions too, is I tell people, hey, look, I'm trying to see, number one, if I can help you, but number two, if you're coachable, because I might have all the, great ideas, maybe, but if you're not open or interested in them, they're definitely not going to work, right? So, it's credit to you guys for being open and obviously I don't do this stuff for you, right? So you guys put in the work to get the things implemented. You decided to look at some of those things on that hiring process with that, that gentleman you ended up hiring, and you decided to, do the work to do the assessments, look at the stuff, right? So you did all that work, and of course I guided you guys, but you did it, right? So that if those are the clients that are the best, right? The ones that are open-minded and they're ready to get to work. And if they are, sky's the limit.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
We're going to put your contact information on the screen.
Cool.
Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
You're
anytime.
improving the world.
There we go. One podcast at a time.
Exactly.
Nice. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching. And if you own a business, I encourage you to get a coach. Even if you don't own a business, if you're an executive type trying to improve your situation, there's coaches that focus on that as well. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.